Cooking at home should be fun, should be relaxed, and most importantly, it should be as easy as we can make it. But you don't want your kitchen to be cluttered up with a bunch of tools and gadgets that aren't going to be of any use to you. You buy them once for a recipe and then they end up just taking up space in your kitchen. So I want to go through 7 tools that I have in my kitchen that have actually made a difference to my cooking and made life a hell of a lot easier. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking about these, but they solve the biggest problem that I have with cooking, and that's friction. When there's resistance to a process, you've got to reach for it, you've got to find it, you've got to stumble your way through it. That's what then causes a block, makes life harder, and then you end up ordering takeaway. First up, one of my favorite things to have in the kitchen, pinch pots for your salt. You may think this is unnecessary because salt already comes in a container with sort of openings to have it sprinkled and things. But actually, going what I said about these tools, reducing friction, having a pinch pot like this is so helpful for cooking. We all know about seasoning and how salting your food is so important. It's really important that you salt it throughout the cooking process, so it's not just at the end. And if you've got something with no lid that's just out in the open, ready to grab, that makes salting throughout the cooking process so much easier. You don't have to leave what you're cooking to go into the cabinet and find your salt, take off a lid, anything like that. It's right there ready for you to go grab it as you're cooking. You don't have to move. It makes it so much easier. And the other thing that's so key about a pinch pot is you've got control over your salting. That makes such a difference, I've noticed. When you have one of those salt containers that has the openings and things like that, you're sprinkling it around and you actually don't have a feel of how much salt you're adding to it. Very easy to oversalt or undersalt because you're just going with what you can see. Whereas when you know your pinch, you can use your fingers and you know exactly how much is in each time. You can feel how much you're putting into it. It makes a big difference on it. Great advice I saw once is to actually learn your pinch by taking what you feel like is a normal pinch, sprinkling it onto a weighing scale or just on the surface so you can get a feel of what that looks like, and then feel like what a quarter pinch is or a full pinch. Then you know whether your normal pinch is a half teaspoon or a full teaspoon, and you can adjust accordingly while you're cooking. I've got 2 pinch pots because I always use one for my kosher salt, which I can season my food throughout with. It dissolves better, it's got a nicer coverage. And then I've got one for my finishing salt, which are slightly thicker flakes. It looks great on kind of cooks and meats and things like that. It's a great way to finish a dish, so that's why I always have 2. This is one that a few people will be surprised that I recommend. Anyone who knows me knows that I love a proper good knife. A chef's knife, Santoku knife, got a few of them. I really love the feel you get when you're properly getting into a rhythm of slicing. These are the kind of knives that I absolutely love. However, they're not perfect for every single task in the kitchen. For some things, a good paring knife is actually really key. There's 2 sort of differences between a paring knife and a big knife. One is your kind of stab control, if you like. You've got sort of pinpoint tip here, which when you combine with the fact that you're holding almost over half of the blade, you can actually pierce things like potatoes a lot easier because you've got that control over that pinpoint. Whereas when you're coming at it from further away with a bigger knife, it's going to be a lot harder to control your stab. You might go too far in, you might miss it, things like that. Secondly is you have a lot more manipulation of the blade itself. So anything like scoring or hulling out strawberries and things like that, a lot of the times when you've got to hold one thing up in one hand, you don't want a massive blade coming out like this where you've got to try and do finer control points to it. So when you're doing things like a strawberry, it's a lot easier to bring everything closer with a small knife and your easier one-handed manipulation. This one I'm very keen to push on you guys. I held off on this unnecessarily long thinking it just wouldn't be needed and it was a luxury. Boy, was I wrong. Digital thermometers. And more specifically, 2 types of digital thermometers. One is a Bluetooth one, and one is a probe one. And I realized without both of these, cooking became a whole lot more mature. Turns out knowing the temperature of things while cooking, actually quite helpful. So I first got myself a Bluetooth, a wireless one. This is the one from Meter Plus, which I really like because of their app. And I can stick this in larger cuts of meats and things like that I'll be putting in the oven. And this just took the guessing game out of it completely. And worrying about the timing and working out exactly how much it was compared to the weight and things. This just meant you stuck it in, didn't care about the weight of it. It would just know the internal temperature. And then you put it in the oven and it gives you the forecast for it, how long it's going to take, and eventually the perfect temperature. Then you know exactly when you're going to take it out and it's cooked to exact perfection every single time. No variation, nothing, it's perfect. If you were constantly opening up the oven to try and take the temperature with a probe one, for instance, you would never get that perfect cookedness because you'd be altering the heat all the time. That wouldn't be great. But then I realized when I was trying to deep fry or heat up milk for custard and things like that, I needed to know the temperature almost instantly. And putting in a wireless thermometer is not going to work for that. So that's where the digital probe thermometer comes into it. Simple case of as soon as you turn on the probe, it's on and you can stick it into whatever and it will immediately read the temperature. That way when I was heating up my oil, I can watch it, stop it from going over, and therefore always maintain the right temperature. And when you're trying to heat something to a certain point, you're following it, poaching liquid for instance, don't want it to get too near to boiling, stick this in, control the temperature, perfect. Hands down, one of the most useful things I found to actually improve my cooking, not just about reducing friction and making things easier, this actually improved the quality of my cooking. This one genuinely surprised me how much I liked the little pan. Known as a milk pot or a butter warmer, I bought this, I think, for a video initially, just to be something that gave the right look and aesthetic, but I actually found this one of the most go-to pans that I actually use. Basically, it was to warm up milk or melt some butter and things like that. But I actually find it such a good saucepan to use for when you're heating up anything or warming up anything in a small quantity. Using a large saucepan for just like a little bit of butter and things like that, it's going to spread too thin. You're never going to melt that right. It's going to burn too quickly. But something like this is just perfect. And also, ridiculous to have to clean an entire large sauce pot if you've just got a little bit of cream or a little bit of milk or something like that. So exactly why you use something like this. But I actually found that I'm using it a lot for any time I make a jus. I finish it off in this with a little bit of butter, keep it warm and things like that. And the best thing is actually you can serve it in this as well. It's got these little spouts on the edge like that. Perfect for pouring any jus over any sauces at the end. You can do that literally right at the table, so it's useful for that. Or a butter garnish for your mashed potato. So I find myself using it every time I make a jus, every time I make mashed potato, I warm my cream in it, and everything just gets poured directly out of the pan. Inexpensive, tiny thing, but so useful. Now this one I might get some pushback on. A lot of the times, one-use tools don't tend to get recommended so much. And it does make sense. You want to try and keep things that are multi-versatile, otherwise you're just filling up your kitchen. This does one thing. Rices your potatoes. But it is the absolute key to a good mashed potato. And so everyone should have one, I think. If you mash potato with a masher and you're hitting it from loads of angles, loads of times, you're overworking the potatoes, you're releasing the starch, and it makes it really gloopy and stretchy. It's not the kind of mashed potato we want. The advantage of a ricer is you put the potatoes in and you press down with one motion, one force, one time, and all the potatoes will come out perfectly riced, ready for the mashed potato. Therefore, you're not overworking the starch, you're doing minimal effort on the potatoes, all ready to be turned into mashed potato. The alternative is you have to push it through a sieve, which just takes a hell of a lot of effort. If you ever try to do that at home, I get cramps in my hands from it, the amount of times that you're having to spread and push through these tiny little holes. So for me, that's way too much effort, way too much energy. Ricer, one simple press, all the potatoes that are in it are pushed through, and you're good to go. One-use tool, yes, but one of the most vital to good quality cooking. Now for the next one, I already know what the comments are going to be. Whenever I mention a mandolin, people always mention about how dangerous it is and you're going to cut yourself and things like that. Now, it's an open blade, so it makes absolute sense. You need to be cautious about it. There's two things that tend to come with them, but you can also get them pretty easily separately if you need to. One is a guard that you'd use to put pressure on the food themselves, so you're not getting your hands too close to the blade. And the other one is a cut-resistant glove. I use this every time I use the mandolin, and then I never have to even think about the blade because it just can't penetrate through this glove. So you're safe and good to go. And now that you've got the danger out of the way, you can unlock the massive potential that comes with a mandolin. No matter how good your knife skills are, how much you want to impress people with knife skills, you can't deny the benefit of a mandolin like this. Even in restaurants, the top chefs who definitely have knife skills, they will still use this because it guarantees you consistent, adjustable, super thin slices of whatever veg you're trying to cut in like 10 times the speed. And for any home chef, that just seems like a no-brainer for me. If you want to make a cucumber salad, you're making coleslaw, you need that julienne slices, you want to make a gratin, you can make a huge gratin and the prep will be next to no time because you can just blitz through those potatoes and create perfectly exact, super thin potatoes every time. Now the final tool that I want to mention is a little bit of a unique one. This is a rolling knife sharpener from HORL. Sharp knife just makes cooking feel good. Not to mention all the safety risks that are around having a dull knife as well. It can slip off and cut yourself very easily and things like that. But actually there's just ultimately a fantastic, satisfying feel when there's next to no effort of just slicing through a tomato or slicing through whatever you're prepping. But the actual effort of keeping a knife sharp can be quite involved. If you want to use a whetstone, you've got to soak it, spend ages making that swiping motion over and over again, making sure you maintain the exact same angle as well. Exhausting. If you use one of those scrape pull through ones, you can't convince me that's not doing more damage than any good. You're literally stripping away the blade, it feels like. And as much as I'd like to say I can set aside a regular Sunday afternoon to calmly sharpen all my knives and kind of like a zen experience, reality is that's just not happening. When my knife starts dragging through something instead of slicing it, my thought is not, ooh, let's quickly get the whetstone out, because it takes too long, it's too much of a chore. But with the rolling knife sharpener, it takes minutes with no prep, so it's literally just a case of grabbing it and you're good to go. You've got two sides to it, one for sharpening it and then one for honing it. And if we're done without any real thought as well, because the angle guide means you just have to swipe it up and down. And look how easy that glides. A million times easier than a whetstone. I don't exactly know about these cheaper knockoffs I'm seeing, but considering how vital the knives are to the whole cooking process, I'd stick with the real deal. HORL knife sharpeners are the one to go for. All these tools and gadgets are not going to turn you into some Michelin star chef, but I guarantee you they're going to make cooking just that little bit more fun and certainly that little bit more easier. Any tool that's going to reduce the friction for that repetitive task is going to be worth it. Cooking that one dish one time doesn't really matter, but that dish that you cook every single week, that's the one that matters. So it's good to have a tool to reflect that. Remember to like and subscribe, home chefs. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, get cooking.